The divorce papers sat on the kitchen table between them like a loaded gun. She pushed them toward him with manicured nails, freshly done that morning at a salon he didn't know she could afford. Her smile was practiced, rehearsed, the kind she'd probably perfected in front of the bathroom mirror. "I'm doing this for both of us," she said, her voice carrying that condescending lilt he'd grown to recognize over the past year. "Mostly for you. Honestly. You'll thank me one day." He stared at the documents, his coffee growing cold in his hands. They'd been married for 6 years. 6 years of building what he thought was a partnership, a future. Apparently, he'd been building alone. "You're holding me back," she continued, leaning back in her chair with the confidence of someone who'd already made peace with their decision weeks ago. "And I'm holding you back too. Can't you see that? We've become stagnant, comfortable, dead in the water." He wanted to argue. Wanted to point out that comfortable wasn't a dirty word, that stability wasn't the enemy of happiness. But the truth was evident in her eyes. She'd already left him emotionally months ago. This was just the paperwork. "I've met someone," she added, almost as an afterthought. "Derek. He's a regional manager at a tech startup. He's ambitious, driven. He's going places." The implication hung heavy in the air. "Unlike you. He worked as a systems analyst at a mid-sized insurance company. Good salary, good benefits, reasonable hours. But reasonable wasn't exciting. Stable wasn't sexy. This apartment, this life, it's suffocating me." She gestured around their modest 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood. It wasn't luxurious, but it was home. Or had been. "Derek has a loft downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows, rooftop access. That's the kind of life I should be living. That we both should want." "We?" He finally spoke, his voice quieter than intended. "Well, you should want more for yourself too," she said, almost kindly. "That's what I'm saying. I'm setting you free. Free to find someone who fits this." She waved her hand dismissively at their surroundings. Lifestyle. Someone with matching ambitions. Or lack thereof. The cruelty was casual, almost accidental. That's what made it worse. She stood up, smoothing down her designer dress, another recent purchase. "Derek's picking me up in 20 minutes. I've already moved most of my things. The rest you can donate or whatever. I don't need them anymore." "Just like that?" he asked. "Just like that," she confirmed. "Look, I'm not the villain here. I'm being honest. We want different things. I want excitement, success, passion. You want this." Again, the dismissive gesture. "In a few months, when you're living authentically, when you've found someone who appreciates your mediocrity, you'll realize I did you a favor. You're free now." She grabbed her designer purse, also new, and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she turned back. "The lease is in both our names through next month. After that, it's your problem. I'm sure you'll figure something out. You're good at maintaining the status quo." The door closed with a soft click, and he sat alone in the apartment that suddenly felt cavernous. The coffee had gone completely cold. The divorce papers stared up at him, already signed on her side, her signature a flourish of confidence. He should feel devastated. He should feel angry. Instead, he felt numb. And beneath the numbness, something else stirred, something he couldn't quite name yet. It would take weeks before he recognized it as relief. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Derek. She's asked me to let you know she'll need her grandmother's ring back. It's valuable and she deserves to keep it for sentimental reasons. Please leave it with the building manager." The ring her grandmother had left her. The one she'd tearfully shown him on their second date, telling him it meant more to her than anything in the world. He looked around the empty apartment and laughed. It was a hollow sound, but it was a start. The first week after she left, he didn't do much of anything. He went to work, came home, microwaved dinners, and watched television until his eyes glazed over. The apartment echoed. Every room reminded him of conversations they'd had, plans they'd made, a future that had been quietly cancelling itself while he wasn't paying attention. By the second week, His older brother showed up unannounced with 2 six-packs and a pizza. "You look like hell," his brother said, pushing past him into the apartment. "When's the last time you showered?" "Yesterday, I think." That's not inspiring confidence. His brother set the pizza down and looked around. "She really cleaned you out, huh?" "She said she didn't need any of it anymore." He grabbed a beer. "Said it didn't fit her new lifestyle." His brother snorted. "Yeah, I saw her Instagram. She's with that Derek guy, right? Every post is them at some expensive restaurant or club. Looks exhausting." He hadn't looked at her social media. Hadn't blocked her either, but hadn't looked. Good for her, I guess. "Is it though?" His brother opened the pizza box. "Look, I'm going to say something, and you're going to want to punch me, but hear me out. She did you a favor." He'd heard those words before. From her. They stung just as much the second time. "No, seriously. Listen." His brother held up a hand. "You've been coasting for the past 2 years, maybe longer. Working the same job, same routine, same everything. You stopped growing because you were too busy trying to keep her happy. And she was never going to be happy because she's chasing some fantasy life that doesn't exist. You don't know that. Don't I? Remember when you wanted to apply for that senior analyst position in Seattle? She shut that down immediately. Said you couldn't uproot her life for your lateral career move. What about that certification course you wanted to take? She said it was a waste of money that should go toward her business idea. The boutique, he remembered. She never did anything with that. Because she doesn't actually want to build anything. She wants to appear successful. There's a difference." His brother took a long drink. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop wallowing. Tomorrow, you're going to join my gym. You're going to start that certification course. You're going to apply for better jobs. You're going to remember who you were before you spent all your energy trying to be enough for someone who was never satisfied." The next morning, head pounding from too many beers, he filled out the application for the Advanced Systems Architecture certification. It was expensive, $3,000. Money he would have never spent while she was around, not without an argument about priorities and responsibility. He hit submit. At work the following Monday, he volunteered for a complex project everyone else was avoiding, a complete security infrastructure overhaul for a difficult client. His manager looked surprised. "You sure? This one's a bear. Lots of overtime." "I've got the time," he said. He did have the time. All the time in the world. No one was waiting at home criticizing how he spent his evenings. No one monitoring his ambition levels. No one comparing him to fictional versions of success. The gym membership came next. His brother introduced him to a friend who ran a small group training program. Within 3 weeks, he'd met more people than he'd socialized with in the past 2 years. There was James, a high school teacher going through his own divorce. There was Patricia, a nurse with 3 kids and an infectious laugh. There was Kyle, a freelance graphic designer who invited the group to trivia nights on Thursdays. He started saying yes. Yes to trivia. Yes to weekend hikes. Yes to a book club Patricia's sister ran. Yes to helping Kyle with a website project that taught him new skills. The certification course was brutal, technical material that stretched his brain in ways he'd forgotten it could stretch. He studied at coffee shops to avoid the empty apartment, and somehow the change of scenery made everything click. He finished in 4 months, 2 months ahead of the recommended schedule. His inbox pinged one evening while he was at his favorite coffee shop, the one with the good Wi-Fi and better espresso. A recruiter from a major tech company wanted to talk about a senior position. Remote work, 40% salary increase, stock options. He stared at the email for a long moment, then scheduled the call. He didn't follow her social media, but the universe has a way of delivering information anyway. Patricia mentioned it first, casually, during a post-workout smoothie run. "Isn't your ex dating that Derek guy? The one with the fancy loft?" "Yeah, why?" Patricia showed him her phone. "My cousin works at that tech startup. Says it's imploding. They were burning through venture capital like crazy, and the funding dried up. They're doing mass layoffs. He looked at the article she'd pulled up. The startup had indeed collapsed spectacularly. Regional managers would definitely be on the chopping block. Her, was all he said. He felt a flicker of something, not quite satisfaction, not quite concern. Something in between. The next piece of information came from his brother 3 weeks later. So I heard through the grapevine that Derek dumped her. How'd you hear that? Kyle's friend dated Derek's roommate or something. 6 degrees of separation. His brother shrugged. Apparently once he lost the fancy job, she wasn't too sympathetic about him lacking ambition. His words. So he ended it. Karma was efficient. He'd give it that. He was in the middle of his second week at the new job when his former building manager called. He'd moved to a better apartment in a quieter neighborhood, 1 bedroom, but modern and his. Just his. Hey, I got something weird happening. Your ex-wife is here trying to get into your old apartment. I told her you moved out months ago, but she's insisting she has rights to the space. We've been divorced for 8 months. The lease ended 7 months ago. That's what I told her. She's not taking it well. Thought you should know in case she tries to contact you. She did try. The first text came that evening, we need to talk. He didn't respond. The second text, I made a mistake. Can we meet for coffee? He blocked the number. She found him on email. The message was long, rambling, and desperate. The loft had been Derek's, and now she had nowhere to go. She'd quit her job to focus on their relationship. Her credit cards were maxed out from maintaining the lifestyle. Could she stay with him, just temporarily, until she got back on her feet? He didn't respond to that either. The final attempt came through his brother. She'd somehow gotten his number. She called me, his brother reported. Said you weren't responding. Said she needs help, and you're the only person she can count on. That you two had history, that marriage means something. What did you tell her? I told her you'd moved on, which she didn't believe. Then I told her you'd gotten engaged, which I know isn't true, but I figured it might help her move on faster. It didn't help. 2 weeks later, she showed up at his gym. He was in the middle of a set when he saw her standing by the entrance, scanning the room. She looked different, thinner, tired, her designer clothes replaced with normal brands. Still pretty, but the polish had worn off. James noticed his expression. You know her. My ex-wife. The one who said you'd thank her. Word traveled fast in their friend group. That's the one. Want me to run interference? Before he could answer, she spotted him. Her face lit up with relief and something else, hope, maybe, or desperation masquerading as hope. She started walking over. He set down his weights and met her halfway, steering her away from his friends. What are you doing here? You look amazing, she said, and she meant it. The months of training showed. So did the confidence that came from building a life he actually wanted. I've been trying to reach you. I know. Then why haven't you responded? We need to talk. We don't need anything, he said quietly. We're divorced. We don't have kids, don't have shared property. There's nothing to talk about. Her eyes welled up. That's not true. We have history. I made a mistake, okay? I can admit that. Derek wasn't who I thought he was. That whole life wasn't what I thought it would be. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you though? Her tears spilled over. Because you seem to be doing great. New job, new apartment, new body. Like I never mattered at all. The accusation hung between them. Part of him, the part that had loved her for 6 years, wanted to comfort her. But a stronger part, the part that had rebuilt itself from scratch, recognized the manipulation. You told me I'd thank you one day, he said. For setting me free. For showing me I was living a mediocre life. I was wrong. I was cruel. You were right, he interrupted. She blinked, confused. I am thankful. Just not how you expected. She stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. What? You were right, he repeated, keeping his voice level, calm. I was coasting. I was comfortable. I had stopped pushing myself, stopped growing. I just didn't realize it until you left. Her expression shifted from confusion to something that looked almost like hope. So you understand. We both needed that wake-up call. We can start over, do it right this time. No, he said firmly. That's not what I'm saying. The hope flickered and died. Then what are you saying? He gestured to a quiet corner away from the gym floor. She followed, and he could see it in her body language, the way she leaned toward him, the way her hands fidgeted with her purse strap. She was desperate, and desperation made people hear what they wanted to hear. When you left, I was angry, he began. Then I was sad. Then I was numb. But underneath all of that, there was this weird sense of relief that I didn't want to admit to myself. Relief. She looked wounded. Yeah. Relief that I didn't have to justify my choices anymore. Relief that I didn't have to defend wanting a stable career over a flashy one. Relief that I could spend money on things that mattered to me without being told it was a waste. He paused. Relief that I didn't have to constantly measure myself against some impossible standard that kept moving further away. She opened her mouth, but he continued. You told me I was holding you back. But the truth is, we were holding each other back. You needed someone who shared your definition of success, the loft, the lifestyle, the appearance of having made it. And I needed someone who could see value in building something real instead of something impressive. I thought what we had was real, she said softly. Did you? Because from where I'm standing, you traded me in the moment something shinier came along. And that's fine, that's your choice. But it showed me that I was in love with the idea of us, the commitment, the promise we made. I wasn't in love with who we'd become. She wiped at her eyes. So what? You're punishing me now. I'm struggling, and you're doing great, and you won't even help me. There it was. The real reason she'd come. I'm not punishing you. I'm just not rescuing you. He kept his voice gentle but firm. You made your choices. You left because you wanted something different, something more. The fact that it didn't work out doesn't mean you get to come back and pick up where we left off. I don't have anywhere to go, she admitted, her voice cracking. I spent everything trying to keep up with Derek's lifestyle, trying to be the person I thought I was supposed to be. My credit cards are maxed. I can't afford first and last month's rent anywhere decent. My parents are retired and can't help. I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd want to help. He felt the tug of old loyalty, old love. The person he'd been a year ago would have caved. Would have offered the couch, offered money, offered whatever she needed because that's what you did for people you once loved. But he wasn't that person anymore. I do understand, he said. I understand what it's like to have your life fall apart. I understand what it's like to start over. That's exactly what you forced me to do when you left. But you had your job, your apartment, which I had to fight to keep because half our savings went to the divorce settlement. You remember that, right? The settlement you insisted on because you'd sacrificed your career for our marriage. He wasn't angry, just stating facts. I had to get a roommate for 3 months to make rent. I ate ramen and peanut butter for dinner more nights than I want to count. I worked overtime on that security project because I needed the money, not because I was trying to prove something. She looked down. I didn't know it was that hard. You didn't ask. You were too busy posting pictures of champagne brunches. He sighed. Look, I'm not saying this to be cruel. I'm saying this because you need to hear it. You made choices. They had consequences. Now you have to deal with those consequences. So that's it. You're just going to watch me crash and burn. I'm not watching anything. I'm living my life. A life I actually like now. He pulled out his phone, typed quickly, and showed her the screen. Here's the number for a social services agency that helped my friend James when he was going through his divorce. They can help with emergency housing, job placement, financial counseling. That's the help I can offer. She stared at the number but didn't reach for her phone to copy it. This is really it? We're really done. We've been done for almost a year. You were done long before that. What if I said I still love you? He smiled sadly. I'd say you love the idea of security I represent right now. You don't love me. You didn't love me enough when things were good. You're just scared and alone, and I'm familiar. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's true. She left the gym without taking the social services number, her shoulders slumped in defeat. He watched her go and waited for the guilt to hit. It didn't come. Instead, he felt something cleaner, simpler, certainty. James approached carefully. You okay, man? Yeah, he said, surprised to find he meant it. Yeah, I'm good. That night, his brother called. So I heard she ambushed you at the gym. News travels fast. Kyle's there when you're there. Of course I heard. His brother paused. Did she try the I made a mistake routine? Complete with tears and the I have nowhere to go plea. And I gave her a social services number and told her no. His brother let out a low whistle. Good for you. That couldn't have been easy. It should have been harder, he thought. It should have hurt more, felt like more of a betrayal of the promises they'd made. But those promises had been broken long before the divorce papers were signed. She'd broken them when she decided he wasn't enough, when she'd met Derek and seen a shinier future, when she told him he should be grateful she was setting him free. She said I'd thank her one day, he told his brother. For leaving me. Bet she didn't expect you to actually mean it when you did. No, she hadn't. That was the thing about people who saw kindness as weakness, they never expected it to grow a backbone. 3 months later, he ran into her at a coffee shop. He was there with Kyle and Patricia, laughing about something stupid, 3 laptops open as they worked on a freelance project together. The remote work situation had opened up opportunities, and they'd formed a little consulting side business that was actually taking off. She was alone, working on a laptop that had seen better days, a single drip coffee in front of her. She looked up and saw him, and for a moment their eyes met. He nodded, polite, distant, the way you'd acknowledge any former acquaintance. She didn't approach, didn't wave, just looked back at her screen. On his way out, he glanced at what she was working on. Job applications. At least she was trying. Was that her? Patricia asked when they got outside. Yeah. You good? I'm great, actually. And he was. The apartment she'd called suffocating was gone, replaced by a space that felt like his. The job she'd dismissed as mediocre had evolved into a career with real potential. The life she'd called stagnant was now full of people who challenged him, supported him, pushed him to be better. 6 months after that coffee shop encounter, his brother forwarded him a social media post. She'd gotten a job, nothing fancy, entry-level marketing at a small firm. But she looked healthier, more grounded. The post was simple: starting over isn't failure. It's courage. He liked the post. Not as a romantic gesture, not as an opening for Reconnect Ion, but as acknowledgement that she was learning the same lesson he'd learned. That sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is leave. That rock bottom is a foundation to build on. That the life you thought you wanted isn't always the life you need. A month later, he met someone at a work conference. She was a cybersecurity consultant, sharp and funny, with opinions about everything and the ability to argue without making it personal. They debated encryption standards over conference coffee, then over dinner, then over a long walk through the city. Fair warning, he told her on their 3rd date. I'm not interested in impressive. I'm interested in real. She grinned. Good, because I can't afford impressive anyway. Student loans are crushing me. See, that's honest. I appreciate honest. They took it slow. He'd learned that lesson well. But it felt different, easier, cleaner, like building on solid ground instead of shifting sand. A year after the divorce was finalized, he got a message from an unknown number. He almost deleted it, assuming it was spam, but something made him open it. I hope you're well. I wanted you to know I'm doing better. Got promoted last month. Found a therapist who's helping me figure out why I chase things that don't matter. You were right about everything. Thank you for not rescuing me. I needed to learn to rescue myself. He read it twice, then typed a simple response, I'm glad you're doing well. Take care of yourself. That night, lying in bed in his apartment, the one he'd chosen, furnished, made into a home, he thought about her words from that day in the kitchen. You'll thank me one day. You're free now. She'd meant it as a judgment, a dismissal, a final proof that she'd outgrown him. She'd been so certain that freedom meant escape from mediocrity, from him, from the life they'd built. But freedom, he'd learned, wasn't about escaping. It was about choosing. Choosing growth over comfort. Choosing people who built you up instead of measuring you against impossible standards. Choosing to see the end of something as the beginning of something else. His phone buzzed. A text from his girlfriend. Still up? Want to video chat? I miss your face. He smiled and called her. She had been right. In the end. He was free. Just not from the things she'd thought he needed freedom from. He was free from trying to be enough for someone who would never be satisfied. Free from chasing someone else's definition of success. Free from shrinking himself to fit into someone else's vision of who he should be. He was free to be exactly who he'd become, someone stronger, happier, and more whole than he'd ever been during their marriage. And yes, he was thankful. Genuinely, deeply thankful. Just not to her. To himself, for doing the work. For building something new from the rubble she'd left behind. For learning that the best revenge isn't bitterness or schadenfreude. It's building a life so fulfilling that the person who left becomes nothing more than a chapter in a much longer, better story. The video call connected, and his girlfriend's face filled the screen, smiling and real and right there. Hey you, she said. Hey yourself. Freedom looked good on him.